But let's move on to basketball, Brett, because after such a long, extensive 113-page health and safety manual came out last episode, we don't really have a lot of NBA news going on right now.
No, not really. We heard the early entry deadline is going to be on August 17th. That's probably a bigger deal for the colleges than the NBA, to be honest with you. And then the draft is going to be on October 16th. So those are some dates to circle on your calendar, but they're a little bit off in the distance. The early entrant thing is interesting because a lot of colleges start up end of August, and a lot of college athletes return to campus a little bit before for um I'll call it like preseason training, even though it's not officially called that. But you get on campus as a team, and your team captains lead you through workouts or whatever, and you guys start your season training. So obviously, with the deadline being in mid-August, it's gonna lead to some interesting dynamics, whether college athletes will be as prepared for the upcoming season, what everyone's workout regime in the off season looks like and all of that, especially with, I mean, state by state, there's different rules, private universities versus state universities. I mean, there are so many variables in college athletics, and this is just another one.
Well, college athletics in themselves are up in the air right now on whether or not there's going to be college football, basketball, baseball, what have you. Uh, so it'll be interesting to see where that leaves these athletes for college basketball season because, I mean, we've talked in previous episodes about the health and safety concerns that there should be for some of the coaches just because of the age of some of these coaching staffs at some of these schools. The players with the timing of this right now of when they have to enter the NBA draft, but the draft is until October, so if they don't get drafted where they want, are they still able to come back like what was recently decided in recent years?
No, they'll probably have to go to the G League. But like, yeah, it's always been it's always they've pushed it now so that agents can now help these kids through the process, and they can be a little bit even more informed on their decision making process. But um, I don't. Yeah, it shouldn't affect that too much. But going back to your coaches thing, because I do think it's important, especially when it affects my Syracuse Orange. Jim Boeheim is a very old cancer survivor who has a top three recruiting class in the country coming in 2 years, or in a year, I guess, not this season, next season. And I really hope he's still the coach so he can bring in that class and win some basketball games.
Yeah, it is a very big concern for quite a number of programs in college basketball in terms of what coronavirus is going to mean. Is it going to force some coaches to end their career potentially? And then in the NBA, the international layout of players and whether they will end up coming over to the NBA anytime soon. The way America's handling this, it might encourage some of those players to stay overseas where they are at least in the meantime. I mean, Brett, before the show, you brought up Danny Avdija to me, the top international prospect, arguably, for next year's draft.
Yeah, he's a big time prospect. I think if you were to look at a mock draft right now, you'd probably see him around 10. And I think it's interesting he's choosing to play. There's obviously some risk, injury risk, health risk, in terms of COVID, but there's some upside too. Like hypothetically, if you're going number 10 right now and you play really well, maybe you bump up to number 5 and earn a few extra $1 million as a rookie and throughout your first contract. So you there's upside, there's some risk, but it was definitely interesting to me.
Now, this is something that I literally just thought of, and we mentioned how the NBA draft lottery is going to be taking place on August 25th. But with the expanded playoffs, does that make for a smaller lottery pickings?
So it's not an expanded playoffs. The extra teams are going to fight for the eighth seeds.
Okay. Oh yes, you're right. So it's still gonna be the full standard lottery then. Okay, gotcha. But if they can't play in Orlando on July 30th like they're hoping to, who knows if that will all be decided by August 25th?
Uh, I mean, Orlando has a bevy. Florida has just a bevy of issues right now, and like, I hope they get it figured out because it's concerning, and they're not the only ones on the rise. So like, we shouldn't just single them out, but like, all these states that may have opened too early or not, closed up shop, like say California or New York City, like it's definitely showing right now. And it's definitely a concern for both the citizens and the sports teams in those cities.
Yes, and Texas as well. We saw results of the Cowboys and Texans testing positive for coronavirus.
I mean, Denver, Colorado, we saw a player test positive. We saw it in LA too. So, I mean, it's all over the country, Higgins.
Pretty much every state that has reopened has seen increases in coronavirus cases. Florida keeps getting brought up partly because I believe the number was 7 of the past 10 days hit a record high in terms of case numbers.
And also from a sports perspective, when all four of the major sports teams in your city get corona on the same day, like you're gonna get singled out, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I agree.